Today is Thursday, November 14th, and we interrupt your broadcast to bring you the latest from the University of Texas Affirmative Action trial involving Abigail Fisher. This fiasco has been going on since 2011, and there is still not an answer to the lawsuit claiming that the university's affirmative action admission process is unnecessary because the school has achieved a mass of minority students. We now send it over to Shivan Patel, who is live outside the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans. What can you tell us, Shivan?
Thank you, Nathan. In 2008, Abigail Fisher was given a rejection letter from the admissions office at the University of Texas. Ms. Fisher, who was Caucasian, believed that race played a major role in her rejection. She filed a lawsuit against the university, alleging that their admissions policy was discriminatory and that it violated several legal precedents set forth by the Supreme Court. Let's hear from Ms. Fisher herself.
Well, my class with lower grades who weren't in all the activities I was in who were being accepted into UT, and the only other difference between us was the color of our skin.
The University of Texas publicly agreed that race is a factor in admission decisions, but contended that this was legal and necessary. Today, the Fifth Circuit agreed, ruling that the admissions policy served as a legitimate public interest. Back to you guys on the protest.
The University of Texas admissions policy was ruled legal today by the U.S. Court of Appeals, which represents yet another court victory from the affirmative action supporters. Affirmative action is the practice of giving preferential status to applicants from underrepresented minorities. Originally, affirmative action was meant to correct the effects of centuries of discrimination by giving minorities a chance to succeed. According to this line of reasoning, minority groups such as African Americans are at such a socioeconomic disadvantage that affirmative action is the only way to level the playing field. Political commentator Bill Mayer puts it this way.
Said that after slavery and Jim Crow and racial discrimination, it's like we all started a race.
But that's
and
not...
3/4 of the way through the race, they said, okay, black people, you can start running now.
Recently, the focus of affirmative action has shifted to include the goal of diversity. The University of Texas argues that affirmative action is necessary to promote the goal of a diverse college, which is in turn necessary for a complete education. But where and when did affirmative action start? Let's see what our affirmative action expert, Jules Dupont, can tell us about the subject. Welcome to the set, Jules.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. So affirmative action in education really started in 1972 when the U.S. Secretary of Labor asked universities to change their hiring practices. And at first that didn't apply to admissions, but universities pretty quickly realized that there was a social need to include more minorities. And so preferential treatment for minorities spread pretty quickly to the admissions office.
So exactly when did this societal debate become more of a legal issue?
So the first really big court case about affirmative action happened at the University of California at Davis. A man called Alan Backey applied for admission to the medical school at Davis and was rejected 2 years in a row, despite the fact that he was really a very highly qualified applicant. In fact, he was much more qualified than other minority applicants who were accepted. But the University of California at Davis held 16 spots in reserve for minority applicants out of 100 total spots in an entering class. And so because Alan Backey wasn't able to compete for those 16 spots, he wasn't accepted. And he was outraged that he had been discriminated against, allegedly been discriminated against, and so he sued the school. And the case eventually made its way up to the Supreme Court.
And how did this turn out in the Supreme Court?
Well, the Supreme Court gave a ruling that had two parts. Really, the first part was that the quota system at the University of California was illegal. Holding 16 spots exactly, 16 spots that whites could not compete for, was illegal. But affirmative action in general was upheld.
And since that case in 1978 with Mr. Backey, what has happened with affirmative action?
So there's been three major cases, two of which have already been decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. Both of the two cases happened at the University of Michigan. And then, of course, the third case is the one that Abigail Fisher is suing the University of Texas currently, and that's the one you're covering tonight.
All right, well, thank you very much, Mr. Dupont. Take care.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
As we can see, the U.S. Supreme Court has generally sided with affirmative action supporters in this debate. However, affirmative action in the college admission process still sparks intense societal debate. After this short commercial break, we'll hear from some supporters of the affirmative action and critics as well. Also, we'd love to hear what you at home think about affirmative action. We'll be right back.
I'm originally from Ethiopia.
I grew up in the Philippines.
I went to Corliss High School. It's on the south side of Chicago.
My high school was 98% Latino.
I was born in Ghana.
I'm from Franklin, Indiana.
One of my good friends is from Bulgaria, and I just met him during freshman orientation.
I grew up in Lake Forest, which is a very stereotypical white community, and the college was a big change because there are people from all over the world, from every socioeconomic background and every cultural background. So it's very different.
And welcome back. So far, we have heard from our expert on affirmative action, and we have brought you a brief synopsis of the Abigail Fisher trial. We have heard from this that affirmative action has a long and complicated legal history. Now let's hear from our troops on the ground. We now bring you a statement of a supporter of affirmative action. Professor Brown states, "I believe in affirmative action in the regard that it provides opportunities for underprivileged, qualified students who have not had the opportunities of others. I also believe that the university should be able to provide the necessary resources and support to help that student succeed. It is a good tool to find students who typically would not be considered for colleges otherwise." Thank you for that statement. Now, we'll check out what the other side believes with this phone interview with Provost Ken Lehrman.
Obviously, there are a number of different perspectives from that group of people that are opposed to it. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is against affirmative action because he believes it puts a stigma on students. Even if, let's say, you didn't get the automatic 20 points, but you're an underrepresented minority at Michigan, people will look at you like, well, the only reason you're here is because you got this automatic 20 points. And so he thinks that, it's an irony. The catchphrase from Brown versus the Board of Education was a badge of inferiority. That's what Thomas is saying about students who apparently are admitted under affirmative action programs, that they have this badge of inferiority, that they weren't really as well qualified to be there. Typically not the case, but that's what some people think.
So which is it? Racism in reverse, or an open-minded egalitarian effort? Let's hear what students at Penn State have to say about the issue.
I feel that affirmative action isn't really a necessary thing in American society anymore because we've made great strides in equality and diversity, so it's kind of old-fashioned.
I support affirmative action because I believe that it makes up for our country's past problems.
I also support affirmative action. I think that it provides equal opportunities.
Personally, I am actually against affirmative action because I believe everyone should have an equal opportunity to go to college. And while affirmative action claims to do this, I believe it actually puts certain people behind when it comes to the college process.
And now we'll head over to Daniel at the video board with your live Twitter feed.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm over here at the video board taking your live tweets. And Republican Girl says that the best way to stop discriminating based on race is to stop discriminating based on race. And this viewer thinks that racism is alive and well and that affirmative action is needed. And this viewer looks like they're probably applying to college, and they think that they need to be black to be accepted. And Smokey here says that admitting people to a school or giving them a job based on race is racism, no matter what fancy name you stick on it. Keep your tweets coming in and at hashtag affirmative action, and I'll keep you posted throughout the night, and we'll send over to Nathan.
Thanks, Daniel. We have a lot of creative viewers out there. Well, as you can see, the country remains deeply divided about the issue of affirmative action. We'll just have to wait and see to find out what the Supreme Court thinks about the Miss Fisher trial. That about wraps it up for here. Thank you for watching, America, and we will return you to the end of your show. Good night.